All right, and we are live on the PHU Dynasty podcast. This is episode 61. We're doing a free agency recap. We had so much going on over the last couple of weeks. All kinds of player movement, people getting signed, cut, traded, situations changing for the better, for the worse. And who better to come on to talk about some of these things than our great friend Andrew Scavelli, of GM of the Toronto Battle Axes, who frankly might have had the most movement. How's it going,
Yeah.
Scavelli?
So great to be here as always. Live out of one Battle Axe place. We renovated a little bit since last time. We got the Canada backdrop
I was gonna
represented.
say that looks
My
really nice.
official Battle Axe T-shirt. So
I mean, we're
we're
just
ready. We're ready to represent our team. Which crazy enough, I did the calculations the other day, and 45% of my roster of my players will be playing in a new situation. So it's almost as if, in a lot of ways, I did a complete blow up or redraft or whatever you want to have it. But so much hanging in the balance for me, and it could go obviously many different ways at this point. A lot of uncertainty, but excited to see it all play out.
Even more impressive when you consider the other 55% of your team is defenses. So
exactly, exactly that. Yes.
yeah, there's tons of
And
movement. Scavelli definitely took quite a brunt of that movement, so, but we'll get into all of it. So the plan is we're going to go through the position groups. We're going to start with the quarterbacks and work our way to the tight ends. We're going to talk about each of the contracts. I have all the contract situations pulled up. I also want to make a note before we get started too, that a lot of these contracts, after reviewing some of them, there's a lot of ways to get out of these contracts this year. I've noticed that more often, or more so this year than any other year, a lot of these end up looking like, oh, it's a 4-year, a 3-year, but it's really just like a 1 or a 2. So I don't think it's going to be as crazy in terms of the length of these contracts.
Josh Jacobs.
That's yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. All right, so let's start right out the gate with the quarterbacks. I'm going to try to pull this up here, and let's see if this works. It does not. That's just me. Does this work? That works. Okay, great. All right, so let's start at the top. A big one for, I guess, Bucks fans that we're going to have to see him a couple of times a year now. It's Kirk Cousins going from the Minnesota Vikings to the Atlanta Falcons on a 4-year, $180 million deal. The guaranteed number is $100 million, and he has an out after the 3rd year. So he's basically, it's a 3-year, 135 when you really look at it. So let's start, Sean. How do you feel about Kirk Cousins? And now that he is in what seems to be a pretty good situation with all the weapons around him.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy value wise, it feels pretty lateral. Just because
it doesn't feel much better or worse, but really.
When you go from Justin Jefferson to somewhere else and you go laterally, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that now he's got, frankly, a better running game this year with Bijan. Instead of Ty Chandler, Alexander Madison, Kenny and Wagner, like whatever they were rolling out last year, it was not it. So I think that's going to take some of the pressure off him too. Scavelli, what do you think about Kirk Cousins with the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson too? It seems like a really good fit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that in terms of like his background. I'm not exactly sure. Did he come from the Rams, I'd imagine?
He did, yeah, with Ra.
Okay. Yeah, with Raheem, that's right. So, yeah, I think that's obviously an offense that plays well to Kirk's strengths. And I definitely see it as a little bit of an upgrade for him. Just from an offensive line standpoint, I think, they do a great job running the football. And they have 2 very talented backs. So he's definitely going to have the running game. Hopefully, Robinson, I'm sure he'll be able to find a way to utilize Kyle Pitts and Drake London. And it seems like they paid a decent amount of money for Darnell Mooney. And then obviously
we will get there.
Yeah. So it seems as though, Kirk has proven everywhere he goes that he's going to put up big numbers. So I think that the Falcons offense, whether that translates to wins, I think they're going to put up a lot of fantasy points. So it's a good situation for him.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask Scavelli maybe not a fantasy question, but what do we think about Raheem getting a second shot, right? We got some Bucks fans on this podcast. I mean, Raheem seems to be going to a really quality situation that wants to give him the pieces to win. I'm looking forward to it. What about you?
Yeah, I was surprised when they went that direction, but I guess the fact that he has such familiarity already, I'm sure, with a lot of the players in the building, I think he did some DBs coaching and then went to the other side of the football, worked with the wide receivers, and then became an assistant head coach. So obviously very loved, I'm sure, within the building. Definitely a breath of fresh air for the players, I'm sure, from Arthur Smith. The players are going to love him and fight hard for him. And I feel like he has a chip on his shoulder because maybe he was given a raw deal with the Bucks. And everybody from the Rams was just totally gushing about him. And I've only, from the way that he's matured and grown since he had that Buccaneers opportunity, I feel like he's in a perfect situation now to have this second chance. And it's crazy to think that we could have really had a full Buccaneers old coaches division with Raheem, obviously Dave Canales with the Panthers, and then I heard that there was another former Bucks coach that was offered the New Orleans Saints offensive coordinator job, and he turned it down. So
interesting.
Mr. JG. So that would have been wild to have all a former Buccaneers staff. That we have to go up against. Definitely Buccaneers South, but it should be a wild dynamic for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, when I was working for the Falcons, there were a few times where Raheem Morris was running the team meetings. Like it was basically, he was being, set up to be a head coach at some point. It just felt like the players loved him. So I really think that, I think he's going to do well. I believe in him in the second go around. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, from a Cousins standpoint, he's going to be there 3 years, it seems like, based on the money. And it seems like he's got a great surrounding cast.
Yeah, and definitely like the fact that Raheem wasn't playing around. Like he knew that his downfall, his first time around in Tampa, was just, unfortunately he was only given one when Freeman, and obviously that didn't work out. But just knowing how important, I'm not, not going to depend on the draft. I'm just going to go out and pay whatever money, get our guy, get that position solidified. And I think obviously allowing him to focus on the defense and I don't know. I definitely like what the Falcons are doing. So it's going to present more of a challenge for the Bucks for sure.
As a Bucks fan, not looking forward to that. But let's go to our next guy here on the list. Quite honestly, kind of an interesting one. I did not see this one coming. Sean, we talked about, all kinds of situations on the earlier podcast before free agency. I did not see this one. So Gardner Minshew going to the Las Vegas Raiders from Indianapolis on a 2-year, $25 million deal. The deal includes $15 million guaranteed, and it has a higher dead cap hit next year. So it does feel like he will be with this team for 2 years, but they could get out of it if they had to. I just find it interesting that they brought him in to compete with Aiden O'Connell, who, frankly, in recent news, it seems like Aiden O'Connell is kind of the lead dog still, based on what Antonio Pierce is saying. But that also sets up the draft too. Like they're in a position where they could end up with another quarterback. So could this be a 3-headed, race for Gardner, for Aiden O'Connell, and then maybe a Michael Penix or a Bo Nix heading into the draft? What do you guys think?
I mean, he feels like insurance right now because Aiden O'Connell didn't really show a lot last season. And
pretty average.
Yeah, and the Raiders are aggressive enough to do something to move up in the draft. Even with not a ton of capital, they'll still try and do it. So, and if they can't, then they've at least got a veteran on the team. So, I mean, I would expect he'll be the starter week 1.
It's interesting. I really think it's going to hinge on the rookie situation. I mean, maybe they end up with Michael Penix and he blows the doors off the training camp and they just can't deny him. But it does feel like Aiden O'Connell is kind of like the lead dog right now based on the news. Do you see it the same way, Scavelli?
Yeah, I think Sean summed that up perfectly. I think that he's definitely going to be good QB insurance for them either way. If they don't get someone in the draft, I think they'd be comfortable with putting him out there. He has such a toughness and swagger about him, embodies the Raider way, what Antonio Pierce is trying to do. And then obviously him just being so self-motivated that he spent so much time the past couple of years just really coming to Tampa and working with John Gruden in the offseason and just really trying to do everything that he can to like be and prove that he belongs as a starter in this league. So I think he definitely has a chip on his shoulder. And, obviously the money that they're paying him, I think, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he plays a bunch this season and he, either way, like if they can't get quarterback early, I think that he'll do just enough and even perhaps elevate that position for them this year. So I like that signing. He's like probably the best mid-tier quarterback available that they could have gotten. So it was a win for them.
Yeah, the next guy on our list, frankly, I don't think it needs a whole lot of discussion with Tyrod Taylor going to the Jets. The Jets just needed a real backup, and he was probably the best true insurance outside of maybe one of the higher paid guys like Minshew. So he gets a 2-year, $12 million deal with a very low cap number for 2024, so they can continue adding to Aaron Rodgers' 2024 season. So let's go to the next guy who I believe is a little bit more of an impact for fantasy, and that's Sam Darnold going to the Minnesota Vikings from the San Francisco 49ers on a 1-year, $10 million deal, pretty much all guaranteed. So he seems like a potential, and I guess we can kind of work this into draft talk as well. He seems like a guy that's going to be competing with somebody else from the rookie, class. And it just depends on who that is, right? So if, maybe they trade up for, a Drake May or a JJ McCarthy, I could see a world where Darnold is kind of given the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then eventually he Darnolds, and then, it gets moved out of there for the rookie. Sean, do you think Darnold holds the job all year, or do you think it's kind of just a stopgap?
What a world it would be if it's Sam Darnold versus JJ McCarthy. One guy sees ghosts, one guy can't see to the left. It's going to be an amazing quarterback competition.
Could you imagine if a ghost came out of the left? It would be incredible. It would be insane.
He's signed me.
Just don't put Justin Jefferson on the left, I guess, is the issue there.
Yeah, for real. No, he's definitely going to get a start this year. I don't think they're going to trade into the top 2, and if May is there at 3, I give up.
I mean, if May is there at 3, like, how did the Patriots just not take him? It's just like, why would there even be a thought? I mean, they don't have anybody in the quarterback. They're horrible. I mean, of course, Brissett's like reasonable, and we'll get to Brissett here in a minute. I guess we can transition right into Brissett. Let's do that. So on a 1-year, $8 million deal, quite a bit guaranteed, 6.5 of that guaranteed. And frankly, I think Brissett deserves to be a real starter for a year. I don't think he's bad. I think at least give him 1 full season. I actually thought he was a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers just before the whole Russell and Justin Fields thing. I just thought everywhere he plays, he looks solid. He's never great, but it's just solid, and that's good enough in this league. You can't tell me that he's not one of the 32 best in the league at the end of the season. It seems too likely. But how does the Brissett signing do you think that puts them off the quarterback at 3, or do you think this gives them more flexibility now? Scavelli, what do you think?
So I think that this is, obviously, again, 1-year deal, $8 million. It's definitely, set up for him to be a bridge quarterback, like you said, maybe play like 5 or 6 games this year until Drake May is ready to get in there and get going. So that's kind of what it seems like to me. Although I totally agree. He did some amazing things with the Browns, and he definitely has it in him to be, a top 32 quarterback. So I think it'll be good for him to get another opportunity, and however many games that translates into. I definitely think he'll have a shot to compete and then bring along whatever rookie they draft at 3. I mean, just to me, looking at it as, how often have the Patriots ever in the last 20, however many years, had the opportunity with like a top 5 draft pick. And for them, obviously, with the quarterback prospects, as generational as they seem to be, I mean, they've got to take one at 3. They've got to take their shot. They tried to go with veterans after Tom Brady and or obviously they drafted Mac Jones too a little later in the first round. But I feel like, to get a prime guy and build around him and obviously give, May and Mayo time to develop and gel together, I think that's going to be, it's better for them to have that patience and, go that route, I think. So to me, it seems kind of set in stone. But
so play a little devil's advocate. Like, is it responsible? Like, assuming May falls, I would tend to agree. I think they should take him if he's at 3. But like, is it responsible for a team that's that bad to put a quarterback out there that's a rookie? Like,
yeah, I think that's where Brissett comes into play, because they could just kind of like use him as like the crash test dummy, and if things are, things are looking stable, then at least he'll be protected. But I think just the opportunity to get him and develop him for a year if needed, but just you don't get many opportunities to to get a guy like that. And I don't know, do they really want to draft a receiver? Or I mean, I guess
that was my next thought, Scavelli. It was like, let's say they draft Marvin Harrison and, they're trotting out Jacoby Brissett. I feel like if they trot out those guys and have a good running game with Ramondre, they're not going to be in the top 5 again. Like, they'll be in that like 6 and 10 range where they're probably not going to get one if they put out that. Because I truly believe like Brissett's good enough to win you, 6-7 games. It just depends what's going on around him. But if you put Marvin Harrison, now the offense looks a little bit different. And frankly, it's not as bad of a situation. But I do think it would be in the Patriots' best interest to just take the quarterback because they're there. I guess the question is what quarterback will be left for them. And that will bring me to our next guy, Marcus Mariota, going to the Washington Commanders. It really comes down to who Washington takes. I mean, are they going to go Daniels, May, McCarthy, Sean? I mean, what's your best guess right now?
There's so many smoke screens out there. It's hard to tell.
I know the smokescreen season is upon us for sure.
They trade Howell, who is very good friends with Drake May.
They went to the same high school, didn't they? Or ain't college? No, not high school, just college. Yeah, but they played together.
I think it was Daniel Jeremiah that was like, well, you don't want them to be on the same, like he was the starter, now he's the incumbent kind of thing.
It's kind of a weird dynamic.
So there's that. Mariota lines up more as like a backup to like a Daniels. So there's that. I think
go off the rails and go McCarthy.
No, I don't. I think only Jim Harbaugh is saying that.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's just pumping up his guys. He's not stupid.
Yeah, because he wants more quarterbacks to go ahead of him.
Yeah, he wants to have every option available. He wants all 4 quarterbacks to go he can take whatever he wants.
Let me take my pick from the best tackle or the best receiver in this class, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, boo-hoo. Yeah.
I get that opportunity, and Lord knows they need it with their wide receiver core right now.
Possible. I still think they might go tackle, but it's a different conversation. I think it's going to be Daniels, and I'm going to hate it. I'm going to hate it so much.
Yeah, the more I watch Daniels, the more I'm like kind of out right now. I'm not totally out, but like I feel like when you watch him play, he looks frail. I feel like he's going to get injured. I feel like really all he does is throw long. I mean, I
don't see him ever being able to play a full 17-game season.
I mean, if he plays like he did with his, I mean, he's fast as hell. He's great at scrambling, but I just don't know how he holds up. I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I guess we can move on here. I don't think there's any other signings that are truly like fantasy relevant unless you guys are seeing one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I mean, Russell, I guess we'll talk about Russell.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big one. And Scavelli, obviously, this is a big one for you. Going on a $1.2 million deal is unheard of to get any starting quarterback for that, price. Obviously, a situation with Denver kind of let that happen. And of course, the Steelers, being the excellent organization that they are, just scoop up the value, very Scavelli-like. So it's all like aligning. So Scavelli, how do you feel about the landing spot in Pittsburgh?
So this is obviously this is kind of a tricky situation.
And talk about Fields too while we're here.
Yeah. So obviously having both my guys with the same team. I mean, I love what Pittsburgh did. That's how, obviously struggling with the QB position for a few years since Big Ben, and they're just like, we have the defense to win right now. Let's just get a guy in there that, all they have to do is just elevate and, be a serviceable starter on offense, which I think both Fields and Wilson are. And it definitely wouldn't surprise me to see, see them both, play almost maybe like a 50-50. I just feel like Justin, it seems like, the players in the locker room love Justin Fields everywhere he goes. And then Russell Wilson, it's kind of like hit and miss. So I feel like Wilson will probably start, and maybe at some point the players will, make that change for them. And obviously right now I just have to be patient and watch the competition or whatever they end up doing play out, and just kind of have the faith that one of those guys is going to perform for Arthur Smith and to put,
which is crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And he brought in Cordero Patterson too.
Yeah.
That was for the new kickoff rule.
You would think, but I could see a world where Cordero Patterson starts eating carries away from Najee and Jalen Warren. Anything is possible with Arthur Smith.
I mean,
can I take us on a side tangent real quick?
Of course, we love.
How does the new kickoff rule affect fantasy, you think?
I think it's going to at least make some of the returners have some value. Like if you need a desperate flex, and there's a guy like, a Cordero Patterson out there, and it's like, I might just throw him into my flex because everybody's hurt and I got nothing else. I mean, if I was in the true Armadillos rebuild situation like I was a couple of years ago, I would have found every kick returner possible because I needed every flex, and I think that might have actually helped. But
do you just go out there and start like Dallas's defense and KaVontae Turpin?
So I guess that makes things interesting with the defenses specifically, right? Because they're going to get the special teams touchdown if that ends up happening. But for the players too, like, I mean, if KaVontae Turpin is a free agent, like he might be worth a pickup now just in case that heroic, touchdown. I don't know what it's going to look like though. I mean, how many return touchdowns do you think there were last year? Like a couple? Like
if there were any.
Maybe any? Like I don't know. I don't even know. Like that's how I did.
There was a few punts, but I don't remember a kickoff return.
There's no way that they're going to put this in with this situation, and there's not going to be kickoff return touchdowns. It's going to happen.
Oh yeah, that there is going to be a team that strategizes it so perfectly, and they're going to have a guy just fast enough to where when pads crunch, that guy will be able to find the hole and just take off. It seems like it's going to be very much just once you get past the first line in this setup, then you're gone. So I could see a lot of speed guys taken to the house with this new rule. It'd be fascinating to see, what happens and if it's destined to fail or if there's like so much,
I think it's good for football.
Yeah.
It's like it's one of the most exciting things.
Yeah, like how if this is like so controversial and will they, and it doesn't end up going well, like will they pull this like halfway through the season? Like I don't know, it seems like such a crazy change to make, but obviously for players, for the sake of health, you gotta do what you gotta do and protect the guys. So
I'm just a big fan of kickers getting absolutely roasted on returns, and I'll be so happy if that's back.
Yeah, if we get kickers getting blocked again, that's fun. And so let's take it to another direction too. With like, all right, so Scavalier, I could point this to you. Who are the best special teams coordinators in the league right now? Because I feel like those are the teams from a defense, standpoint in fantasy. You probably want to tie yourself to that wagon, at least in case, I could see it maybe being a situation where it's like butt fumble, or not butt fumble, but the tush push. Where it's like, exactly. Okay, so it's just the Eagles that are good at this and nobody else can do this. So like, what if that happens to like Dallas and they have, I think New Orleans also has an excellent special teams coach, Rizzi, I believe. And he was on the committee that made this rule. So it's like, what if that guy has like some magic sauce up his sleeve or something? Like, exactly. I want to have that defense, right?
Yeah.
You have like returning kicks too. Dude's fast.
I mean, the player is one thing, but scheming it up I feel like is going to be insane. So
exactly one coordinator that thinks outside the box enough. And I love that the way that Dan Campbell was just very like, he loved the fact that there was uncertainty and there was opportunity there. And, another good coordinator, I feel like Dave Taub of the Chiefs is like really highly thought of, obviously being with Andy Reid for a while. Rich
It's like it's
Bisaccia,
gonna
of
be
course. I'm not
yeah,
sure what team.
Bisaccia.
Yeah,
I don't even
what
know if
team
he's
he's on
coaching,
now, but
honestly, at this point, but because he was on the Packers for a little while. But they paid. Actually, he is with the Packers because they paid him a ton of money after that awful special teams year they had a couple of years ago, and he
yeah.
got fired from Oakland. So that makes sense. But yeah, okay. So that's probably the most kickoff talk we'll ever have on this podcast. But it was worth it. So let's go to the available quarterbacks. Or actually, no, I cut that
Wait,
slide
did you
because
finish your thought on Fields? And
yeah, we go ahead and finish Fields if that was. Do you think?
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
I mean-
pose this question: do you think Fields, or how many games do you think Fields is going to play this year? That's what I want to know.
I think probably just under 51%, because if they go any more, then it's a fourth round pick. Yeah, so they're gonna try to do whatever they can to see how the season goes with Russell Wilson. If he's able to manage the games and win games, I feel like he'll keep that job. But if things start going downhill, then they'll, and at the right time, I think they'll make that move and put Fields in there. And I still think that Fields, will be a starter in this league at one point, even if he has to take a back seat and learn for a little bit this year. I definitely think he has all the tools, and hopefully he'll find, or if this doesn't work out in Pittsburgh, he'll find an opportunity with some offensive coordinator that, wants to really play to his strengths. And even if that's just kind of like a run first, whatever team has a good running game and that he could just kind of manage. And I think he'll still, I'm keeping the faith in Fields. I am. I think he played so good down the stretch last year. So even though his numbers and everything overall, are pretty average, it's just that running potential, I think, that makes him so exciting to me as a fantasy asset. So,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? They might even use it as a wildcat guy or something like that. You never know.
I mean, if they want to use him like Cordell Stewart, right? I think Slash.
Yeah.
was the game with the Steelers, or even Antoine Randall, whatever they do, where they just kind of like have him out there running and kind of as a gadget player. I think, hopefully Sleeper will allow you to like put him in a slot position and just almost like a Taysom Hill, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
hey, he was the best left-handed quarterback in the league for a little while.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to a position that has a lot of discussion that needs to be had for fantasy. This is the running back position. Lots of movement this year. Surprising amount of movement, considering usually free agency is a little bit dead for running backs at the start. Let's start at the top with, I want to call it the fakest deal. It's a 4-year, $48 million deal for Josh Jacobs going to the Green Bay Packers, which I thought was an interesting landing spot with the whole Aaron Jones situation. But it seemed like Jones was asking for too much and it didn't work out. And then they just pivoted to Jacobs, and Jones is like, I guess I'm out of here. And that's that. But the deal really for Jacobs, if you look at the overall numbers, it's really just a 1-year, $14 million deal. Only 12.5 of this is guaranteed. And it's a pretty low cap hit for the year at 5.3. So, I mean, it's basically a 1-year deal with the potential just to stick around if he's good. He's a 26-year-old running back, so he's kind of in that prime area. So, Sean, how do you feel about Josh Jacobs? Because I think he's going to be a guy that is going to get a ton of carries.
You know that meme of the lady on the plane screaming that motherfucker back there isn't real?
Yeah.
Seen that? That's his contract. That shit ain't real. That's so fake.
The numbers are very pumped up. We'll put it that way.
Insane. Whatever you want to do to put out on Twitter or whatever, it's fine. That shit's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like the agent was like, hey, we're going to do a 1-year, $12 million deal. But when we go to Twitter with it, let's just throw out a shit ton of other numbers and we'll make it look cooler so that I can get continued deals in the future. So it's Jacobs, I think it's a great signing, honestly, for Green Bay. I mean, it gives them a little bit more juice. I think they also brought back AJ Dillon on a cheap deal. So, I think he's going to get a little bit more phased out at this point, as opposed to his 50%-ish share that he had last year. Jacobs seems pretty reliable.
I would say I think they knew they were going to be moving on from Aaron Jones, which I don't think was what everybody else thought.
I don't think it was in their plans. I just think he asked for too much money.
I think Jones was at the $13 million range, and that they got Jacobs for about 14. So they figured, well, if he didn't want to take the pay cut, might as well, go younger and try to
Yeah.
get more of a long-term solution there. I don't know.
Really, even for the workload that he's gotten the last couple of years, like he didn't have a lot of carries in college, so like he doesn't have a ton of tread on his tires. I think he should be good. I think last year he got injured before camp, or he didn't sign, so he kind of got set back. That kind of ruined his season a little bit.
Yeah, he's always
So,
seems like he's banged up too. Like I always feel like he's a guy
Mhm.
that is questionable every week, and then he doesn't play, and then AJ Dillon goes out there and gets 13 carries for 49 yards, and it's like nobody's happy with this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Green Bay thought the same thing too. They're like, we need a little bit more stability here. And I think it's a great signing for Jordan Love too. But let's talk this, bring this into our dynasty league. Justin really needed this. Justin with his running back situation a little bit murky. I mean, obviously he's got Kenny Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Zeke is kind of down in the dumps at this point. So getting Jacobs to come back with another good team and a good situation is very important for him. So a good signing there. Let's go to our next guy, Saquon Barkley, a 27-year-old running back, just turned 27, going from the Giants to the division rival Philadelphia Eagles on a 3-year, $37 million deal, which truly is a 2-year 26. If you look on the right side of the screen, there's a $26 million guaranteed number in there. So, of course, Howie doing Howie things. He puts a $3.9 million dead cap for this year, which is a great cap hit for a guy like Saquon. So, Sean, obviously you're the Eagles guy here, so let's hear what you got to say, and then we'll go to Scavelli for the impact to his team.
Would really love if Jason Kelsey unretired right
Yeah.
now. I would be losing my mind.
It'd be
It's
beautiful.
still going to be good. He's still going to be great. I mean, he's actually going to run behind 2 tackles that are good.
That can block, Sean. That can actually do their
Block.
job. That's pretty
So,
cool.
I do like Andrew Thomas, but he didn't play a lot. So, I mean, he should be up 4.5 to 5 yards per carry again. We'll see touchdowns wise what they do. I think that's the big question that everybody has on Barkley right now is like, what's the touchdown upside? And I'll let you talk more about that, Scavelli. But I think it'll be interesting because it's hard to tell without Kelsey there if they're going to be running a lot of sneak.
Yeah, so all right, Scavelli, let's talk about the impact to your team too, because we're heading into free agency. Obviously, a lot of the league had question marks on your running back situation, on your team as a whole, with a little bit of the age thing and where people are going to land. And now that we know the landing spots, you got to be feeling pretty good about this, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely incredible. Again, like how often does every single one of your starting running backs like have a complete change in situation? And for me, for the most part, it was very positive. And obviously, I think Saquon going to the Eagles, that's a dream destination. I would have wanted him to either be there or with the Texans. And I feel like typically in the past, the Eagles did more of a committee running back situation with, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders before that, Rashad Penny last year, DeAndre Swift. I mean, they had a lot of guys, but it seems like they've kind of, because they've invested so much money in Barkley, and to have someone on that team actually like be the workhorse kind of back, I think that'll be kind of a different thing for that offense. And then of course being used in the receiving game as well. And I think he's going to get plenty of opportunities. Obviously a lot of mouths to feed with that offense, but I think certainly they've never seemed to have an issue getting their running backs touchdowns. The issue was like, we just don't know which one is going to get the touchdowns. But it seems like, Barkley having a better offensive line, better quarterback play, like he's actually surrounded with other weapons rather than like putting it all on himself to be like the only offense. So how powerful he was by himself with the Giants. I mean, I think the Eagles are playing with a lot of firepower right now. So
it just feels like a really athletic team.
yeah.
When you're trotting out AJ Brown, trotting out Devontae Smith, you're trotting out Dallas Goedert, you're trotting out Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches for sure.
Yeah.
Just a reminder that this is going to be a very Kellen Moore influenced offense this year as opposed to the last couple of years. So might not look exactly the same.
Yeah.
Kellen Moore does love his running backs though.
Does.
It seemed like he did really well with the running game in Dallas, and I'm not too sure. I mean, I think Eckler probably did good last year when he played as well with the Chargers, but I think it
Before he got
definitely.
hurt, he was good.
What's that?
So he got hurt, but before
Oh
that,
yeah,
he was
yeah. So it seems like Kellen Moore will, be able to get that running game going, and obviously with a player like Barkley, man, the sky is definitely the limit. I think he ultimately found the best situation. So for that, I'm very thankful.
And let's go ahead and skip down the list a little bit because I just want to keep the focus on the battle axes. Let's skip down to Derrick Henry signing a 2-year, $16 million deal with $9 million of that guaranteed, essentially a 1-year, $9 million deal. Now, Scavelli, I mean, I can't speak for you, but when I saw that news, I was like, is there any player that has looked more like a Raven than Derrick Henry? Like, he is going to look incredible in that all black uniform. I cannot wait.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And with Henry, again, it was like, you never know, with just the uncertainty of which team is going to want to, invest in an older, 30-year-old running back like that. And obviously, I was excited about the potential of him maybe going to the Cowboys, but the Ravens, obviously, were a team that's been after him and tried to trade for him at the trade deadline. So it seems like there is so much interest on their end. And I don't know if there is a better situation because obviously, again, another team that traditionally did like a running back kind of by committee kind of thing, and now just having Henry there is the bell cow with Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's oof. Who are you gonna stop? I don't know. It's
think about Gus Edwards' production last year being Gus Edwards, and now you're going to throw Derrick Henry into the Gus Edwards role at the very least. And has there ever been a more lightning and thunder than Keaton Mitchell and Derrick Henry? I mean, it's like the complete opposite type of back, but I love it. I think it's just going to be good for everybody involved there.
I'm very happy with how things shaped out with like my top running backs and even other guys like Pollard and Jones. I would say maybe it's like a draw with or like a yet to be determined with their situations. But I also think they're with the contracts that they were given as well, and just with some of the people that they're that they have competing with them for touches. I can't all around. I would have to say that it played out better than I could have wanted.
Let's pivot to Pollard on that note because Pollard kind of a down year last year, and based on his expectations before the season started, I think people weren't expecting a whole lot from where Pollard was going to land this year. I feel like he was always kind of destined for a committee type thing again after not really working out as a lead back last year. However, this time he goes to Tennessee, which I thought was a really weird signing for Tennessee on a 3-year deal for $21 million, and 2 of that 2 years, 14 is kind of what the true contract is. I just thought it was a weird deal for them, and I'm not really sure I like it. I don't know what the thing.
I will say it looks less weird when you look at the fact that they literally signed everybody.
That's true. They kind of just didn't care. They just hit the sign all button on Madden. And
everybody's getting money.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to the Ridley discussion here in a second, but yeah, Pollard, going with Spears now. I mean, Spears obviously is an injury risk with his basically half a leg that he's running on. Are you feeling like Pollard is going to be, quote, the lead guy here? Or are you kind of thinking this is going to be a half and half, Scavelli?
I think so. I think with how much they paid him and just in general for him and the Titans, it seems like such a homecoming, like him being from Memphis and just really, meaning a lot to be back in Tennessee and just kind of, I feel like him, not necessarily being at full health last year and now just getting back to what he once was. I prefer him to be in like that 50-50 role because that's when it seems it works best. But it seems as though he'll at least get like a 60-40, perhaps like a 65-35. So in terms of just not necessarily feeling all the pressure to be the guy and then having, all the receivers that they signed or, that they're trying to build up now too. I think he won't feel all the pressure maybe like he felt in Dallas. So I'm hoping
I mean,
that
there's always pressure in Dallas as the
yeah,
lead running
I'm
back.
hoping that just going back to your home state and just being especially again a media market that is like a lot less intense. Like nobody's really expecting anything from the Titans, new coach. Like I think it's a good situation for him. So
They're going to get a good offensive line too with that great offensive line coach.
Yes, they are.
yeah,
I could not agree more about wanting them to be in a 50-50 split. Like, I couldn't think of two running backs that need to be in a 50-50 split more than him and Spears.
yeah.
They probably thought of that too, though, honestly. They were probably thinking, hey, we'll 50-50 it. They both have a similar skill set, but, they're both very explosive backs, and I think they both have upside for sure.
And Spears outsnapped Derrick Henry last year, FYI.
Wow.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, and Spears looked good too. Like that was the thing. I think that, obviously if you're a Spears owner like Dustin, you were probably, hoping that they would sign a guy like AJ Dillon or something and, kind of dominate the production there. But, I think this is a bit of a tick down maybe for Spears as we headed into the offseason thinking he might be the RB1 on that team.
Are you rooting for them to get the number one tackle off the board?
I think that would only help, Pollard's case. So I'm all about, and especially Will Levis too. You never know. That could be, someone I have to rely on, if things in Pittsburgh kind of falter a little bit. So whatever they could do to protect Levis, give the running game a little more of an edge. It seems like I'm kind of invested in the Tennessee offense. So I'm all about O-line for sure.
Now let's go to the next guy on the list that we kind of skipped by. Honestly, one of the weirdest signings outside of Pollard. I don't love it. It's the DeAndre Swift to the Chicago Bears on a 3-year, $24 million deal. 2 years, 16 is the real deal. But he's basically getting $15 million guaranteed. And when you get $15 million guaranteed as a running back, you are going to play. That there's no. I mean, it's not like he's getting signed there to be a true like committee back. I really think he's going to be the guy. It's just a weird dynamic with Khalil Herbert still being a quality running back, in my opinion. And Roschon Johnson, I was very high on last year. And he's frankly the best third down back at all these guys. So like, which is crazy to think because, with Swift's skill set, you would assume that he is the best receiving back. I don't think that's the case.
He's unplayable on third down.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I just don't get the signing for the money it cost. And then maybe it's just they just want to, they had a lot of cap room and they wanted to fill it up somehow with just talented players. That could have been the thought process from Ryan Poles. But, I think it's also, too, let's just give as many explosive players as we can to Caleb Williams and we'll figure it out. And that seems like it could work, but I just don't love the amount of money and I don't love the fit when they already had two backs that I thought were totally fine.
Yeah, it was kind of one of the more confusing signings, especially since he was.
It's like the first signing, wasn't it, that came out?
One of the first running back signings right out of the gate. So definitely a surprise. And especially, I feel like Herbert was a guy that I was very high on for a long time. And there are many opportunities for me to trade for him throughout the past couple years. And I was very excited to see him, work as the lead back. But it seems like now, taking a back seat. And then obviously Roschon Johnson came on strong last year as well. So it's definitely, a case of wanting to. And, Swift also has some injury issues as well. So, and I mean, quite frankly, all the running backs there tend
Roschon got hurt too.
Well, so hopefully, I mean, a couple of them will emerge and maybe one of them will be like a trade candidate perhaps. And just again, I think trying to surround Caleb with every weapon that they can. I understand it. Is he like probably, are there running backs out there that I probably would have prioritized more? Probably, but maybe, they didn't necessarily like that situation either. So you just kind of have to, get who wants to be there and we'll see how it pans out for them.
Yeah, it really feels like Herbert's going to end up being the odd man out because he's good between the 20s and he's good on first and second down. but you're paying another guy to do that. So
Yeah, I feel like Herbert's a pretty obvious trade candidate.
Yeah.
Maybe during the draft, something like that.
his skill set is very similar to the next guy down on the list as we transition down.
Yeah, I think we should go right down the list here to I believe you're talking about Antonio Gibson.
I was talking about Singletary.
Oh, I should have passed right by him. Oh, it's because we went to Henry. Yeah, Singletary is definitely a 1 and 2 down banger. But this is an interesting landing spot. I mean, so obviously Barkley's gone. They don't have anybody. I think Matt Breida is their best running back at this point outside of Singletary. It's not a deep running back class per se. So I feel like the only running back that'll truly be added to this team will be probably a day 3 back, you'd imagine. So, round 4 to 7 kind of guy that probably won't be an immediate starter. So it's looking like Devin Singletary's job.
If they take anybody, they traded capital to get Burns. So they don't have.
Yeah, that's true too. Very true. Very true. I mean, of course, there's a few other guys available on the free agency list right now at running back, but when you're paying a guy, I think his deal was a 3-year, $16 million. The total guaranteed is 9.5. Like 9.5 is enough to, start turning some heads. It's a 2-year, $11 million deal at its core. So it seems like they're counting on him to at least be, I would say at minimum, a 50% snap share guy. At this point, depending on who else they can add.
He's my RB that'll never die.
He's just, every time you think it's down and out, he's in Houston behind Dameon Pierce. Nope, he's better. And I always liked Singletary. I just felt like he got kind of a raw deal in Buffalo because he just didn't really fit that offense great. They needed more of an explosive guy, and that kind of James Cook kind of works for them. But Devin Singletary is a good running back. Scavelli, do you think the landing spot is pretty good?
Yeah, in terms of not having anybody else there and the amount of money that they gave him, even though, again, Giants, having to put their faith in Daniel Jones again. And just, I feel like I've seen so many memes where they show the offensive weapons and who they have on that team on offense. It seems like it's just kind of a disaster for Brian Daboll to try to, of course, he does everything he can to get the best out of these players, but definitely, not having that threat that you need to completely, stack the box for, like Saquon. I just feel like, Devin Singletary is probably not going to scare people, and maybe he has just in terms of volume. I think he'll have success, but that whole offense in general is just kind of it's depressing to look at least for me.
There's not a lot of firepower. And of course, I think there's even discussion about Darren Waller like retiring at this point.
Exactly.
It's going to be, I feel like there's almost no way they don't go receiver in the draft. They just they have to get something, right? Like they don't have it.
Unless they take a quarterback.
Which would be,
yeah.
I mean, at this point, we know Danny isn't the guy. So like if they're at picking 6, like who knows if they'll be in that spot again? Like,
wasn't there a report that said he might not be ready for training camp?
I mean, that'd be crazy. If that's the case, then it makes it even more interesting. And let me go back to this last slide. Did they sign a quarterback? Yeah, they signed Drew Lock.
Drew Lock, yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. I mean, yeah, I think that at least if they don't take a rookie, they have another option at least. So that's kind of nice. But I don't know. I don't like the Giants. I don't think it's going to work out. I feel bad for Daboll because I think Daboll's a good coach.
Yeah.
And I think he's an obvious candidate. If he ends up getting fired at the end of the year, I don't think he's going to last long on the open market. I feel like he'll get another shot somewhere else. But all right, so we got to keep this moving. Let's go to the next guy. Let's talk about Eckler. I feel like Gibson. He's kind of just a running back on the backup side of things at $5 million. I'm not really super. I mean, it's a 3-year, $11 million deal on the surface, but really it's a 1-year 5.9, I think. So it's basically they're going to use him on third downs probably. It doesn't seem like, and honestly, Gibson would be a great guy when we're talking about this kick return stuff. I feel like he's kind of a perfect fit for that. So I mean, maybe that had something to do with it. But let's go to Eckler because he ends up in Washington. He's going to be paired up with Brian Robinson. He gets back to that role that he was in prior to getting that full workload, with Los Angeles. Scavelli, do you think Austin Eckler is a playable RB2 at this point, or is he going to be more of a flex kind of guy?
No, I think he's definitely in the RB2 conversation. And even just looking at this deal, it seems like such a value. 2 years, 8 million. I feel like if I'm reading that right, I feel like he was wanting to be like, a $10+ million back and
It's
holding out.
really a 1 year 4.
Yeah, it's incredible to me. Maybe it was just he felt that was the best opportunity that was out there after some of these moves were made. Although, if he went to, I mean, I feel like the Cowboys could have afforded to pay him that.
Houston.
I don't know.
Houston definitely could have paid them that.
Yeah, I feel like the Commanders are getting a steal, and he'll be a great 1-2 punch with Brian Robinson and whatever rookie quarterback. To have that kind of threat and dependability as a third down back and a blocker and everything, I like it. I think he'll definitely be a startable running back, certainly.
Yeah, so we can go to I think our next guy on the list that kind of had some movement would be Aaron Jones and Zach Moss. So I'm not really worried about DJ. I don't, wait, hold on. So let's talk about DJ Dallas. Why did DJ Dallas get $8 million? Okay, no, he didn't. It's 1 year, 2.7. It's 1 year for 2.7. So it's a fake deal. It's another fake deal. So this is another one of the Josh Jacobs deals. This is like, but why was he ever like? It's another Seahawk. How did this happen?
Yeah, it was such a run on Seahawks.
What happened? So I know Arizona had no depth behind James Conner, so it kind of adds up that they wanted somebody. But like DJ Dallas was the guy. So wait a second, DJ Dallas got 1 year, 2.7, but you're telling me that Austin Eckler only got $2 more million than DJ Dallas? That is ridiculous.
That's what he gets for playing on a sprained ankle. Looked terrible
absurd.
last year.
He did not look good though last year. I'll say that, but it wasn't really his fault. And that offense was a complete train wreck. So, I don't feel like it's that was true Austin Eckler. But yeah, DJ Dallas has a ridiculous deal. So let's go to Zach Moss, who actually looks like he has fantasy potential here, going to Cincinnati without Joe Mixon. It's a 2-year, $8 million deal, but he is getting only 3 of that guaranteed. So it's essentially like a 1 year 4.5 with the extra incentives and whatnot. So it's a cheap deal, basically the same as Austin Eckler's deal, to be honest. Do we think that Zach Moss is like the guy, or do you think this is a situation where they're going to use Chase Brown a little more, or maybe add another rookie running back?
I think this is one of the prime teams to take like one of those third-round running backs for sure.
Yeah, I could see, maybe like a Trey Benson or, even Jonathan Brooks if he makes it that far. I feel like there's a couple of guys that would fit. I just think Chase Brown actually looked good when he played last year. He seemed very explosive, but maybe he's just a third down guy and they need more of a 1 and 2 down kind of guy. Zach Moss can kind of do all 3. So, I mean, he's a good veteran signing to just ensure that you have some legitimate option at the running back position before the draft. And then maybe after the draft that changes. But it was a good signing for Zach. I feel like it's at least a good spot where he has a chance, right?
I think he landed in a great situation. And obviously, I think the Bengals, they are really trying to be as conservative with their money right now and other position groups, maybe on offense as they can, knowing that they'll have to shell out so much to the wide receiver position. So it made sense why they wanted to trade Mixon and just try to keep those numbers down. And I'm sure they'll get a nice day 2 rookie on a favorable contract as well, and just kind of try to play it as cheap as they can and, make up for all the money they're going to have to put into the receiver position.
All right, so the next one is another Scavelli special here. It's Aaron Jones going to Minnesota, and that's kind of swap we talked about where he got cut by the Packers and then quickly signed by the Minnesota Vikings on a 1 year, $7 million deal. All of it is guaranteed, and he only counts again. I never understand how this happens. How is it possible that he has a $7 million deal with $7 million guaranteed, but only 3.5 on the cap? I don't know how that works. I'm not Mike Greenberg. I don't know how. It must be some void or some weird thing going on. But
they're probably using void years,
which is kind of a weird move for the Vikings to sign a 29-year-old running back with void here. I don't understand what they're doing.
I feel like they have to do things with just.
Do they? They're not paying a quarterback right now.
I think just to get him to show up. I think they just need people to be there. Like, I mean, I know Justin Jefferson is good and Addison is good, but like
Knowing
like
full
as of
well.
right now, they have Sam Darnold. So it's like, why would I go there really, other
Yeah.
than just money?
That's kind of an interesting situation. I feel as though maybe it's kind of a push in terms of. I mean, I maybe like him a little more on the Packers, but having not really much of a competition in Minnesota and just seemingly paid to be the guy in that offense. Whoever the quarterback is, I'm sure O'Connell will find a way to keep him productive. And he came on really, really strong at the end of last season, especially the playoff game as well. So he looked like he still had a lot left in the tank. And obviously the quarterback position will determine a lot of his success this year. But I think he'll definitely be playing with a chip on his shoulder, and I would never count out Aaron Jones. So I'm expecting him to be a key member of my team.
Yeah. So the next guy. So also too, we're an hour in. Are you guys good on time? I just want to make sure that you guys aren't. This is going to be a long one, I think, because we're only at the running backs at this point.
Yeah,
so.
I'm good.
As long as you guys, if you need to cut off, just let me know. But we'll keep rolling until you guys tell me. Next guy is Gus Edwards. As a Gus Edwards owner, I'm a fan of the landing spot. I did hear that there was rumors that they might sign J.K. Dobbins, which would piss me off. I would rather them not. That being said, he won't be healthy, so it's not an issue. It seems like Greg. Who's their off? Is it Greg Roman?
Greg Roman, yeah.
Yeah, like it seems like they're just trying to bring a lot of those guys out, but I still think this is a team that adds a running back in the draft. But for what it appears that at least Gus Edwards might have a role next year, which is all I could ask for out of a somewhat lower level starting running back. So let's keep it moving. We got Cordell Patterson on a 2-year, $6 million deal to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We kind of talked about that already. Probably just a return type situation. I'm not super fond of the AJ Dillon signing. I feel like his value now with Josh Jacobs being there seems pretty low at this point. I don't think he's a reliable player for fantasy, and now as a result of that,
I think he was just probably taking a look at the market and what was out there for like other backup or rotational positions. He was like, familiarity with the Packers. Like, let me just go back on a 1-year deal and see how the market is the next year. So I think he was able to just keep that continuity. And I don't know. I almost wanted the Bucs to sign a guy of like just that level to where he'd be like not threatening, Rachaad White, but just capable enough of providing an extra like dynamic at running back, being such a powerful kind of guy. But
I still think that's going to be a thought for them in the draft too. I think the Bucs will be looking at the running back situation on day 3, specifically rounds 4 to 7, to find a guy like that. Maybe there's a power guy that, just bringing in any level of competition to like not let Rachaad White rest on his laurels, if you will, to maybe just keep the competition going. Because Chase Edmonds is not that competition. I don't care what anybody says. He's a fine veteran guy, but he's not a starting caliber player by any means. Next guy on the list, Alexander Mattison, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Kind of a sneaky little signing because they did lose Jacobs. That being said, Alexander Mattison stinks, so I don't think this is going to be really relevant, especially after the draft. And I feel like Zamir White really deserves a chance. I think he's a good running back. I've always thought he was a good running back. I've been trying to trade for him for months, years now, it seems like, with Dustin. I think Zamir has a chance, so I'm not really going to waste too much more time with Mattison. I don't see anything else on here that's super exciting, but I will get to the next slide, which is the available running backs that are out there right now. So here's the list of what we got. Zeke Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a couple of big names there. Dobbins we talked about a little bit. I don't think did Mixon get signed? I don't think he did, right?
Who?
Mixon's on the Texans.
Mixon?
Joe Mixon?
Oh, we must have missed him then. I don't know how that happened.
No, he was traded. That's why. He wasn't.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I guess we could talk about Mixon then. How do you guys feel? I mean, it seems pretty good, right?
Yeah. I think he's very favorable position.
I mean, he kind of seemed like he was slowing down a little bit last year in terms of his explosion. Like when Chase Brown got on the field, it seems like Chase Brown was like 4 times the speed of Joe Mixon. So maybe all of his carries over the years are starting to wear him down a little bit. But they still have Damian Pierce and, the Texans. He doesn't need to get all the carries.
Yeah, he's been living on volume for like the last 2 years, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was very explosive those first couple of years. He looked legit, and I don't think he's looked the same. And he's been injured too. I think he's been banged up every once in a while. So, but yeah, he is getting the volume when he does play, which makes things interesting in Cincinnati. It's like, how do you replace that level of volume? But I don't think it's Zach Moss personally, but this seems like they're destined for that split that we talked about earlier. Are there any guys on this list that you're looking at and saying like, man, if this guy signs, in a specific spot that's running back needy, like a Dallas or something like that, are you guys hyped about any of these guys? I mean, Sean, obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you would love a second shot for him, right?
I would. I mean, I'm not expecting it, but I would. But
The youngest guy on the list.
I still kind of think Zeke is pretty okay. I don't know.
I mean, he seems like a pretty prime candidate to go back to Dallas. Like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
I just feel like they're right now he's going to be dirt cheap. I mean, the problem is DJ Dallas is inflating the fucking rate apparently. So, I mean, maybe it's like a 1 year, $3 million type dollar deal where he goes back and everybody loves it. And, they draft a Jonathan Brooks or a Trey Benson or something, and then maybe just have them split, kind of like that Pollard role that they had a couple of years ago.
Is there hype for them to sign Brooks or draft Brooks in Texas?
I think there is, and the big reason for that is that the Cowboys team surgeon is the one that did his ACL recovery.
Right.
So that seems like they are kind of leaning in that direction, and it would not surprise me at all that Jerry would want to take a Texas guy, and it doesn't have to spend a first round pick on him. It feels like he'll be at least a great shot for the Cowboys at 54. I think they pick in the second round. So I think that's probably where they go. And that seems like the right, kind of range for Brooks because of the injury. I mean, I think if he wasn't injured, he'd be a high second. But I think at this point, he's probably going to be like a low second, early third kind of guy. And he should be the first running back off the board, unless somebody falls in love with the speed of Trey Benson or one of these other guys we're not thinking about. So I think the only other name on the list that maybe a little interesting just based on, his past, hype would maybe be Cam Akers. I mean, he kind of sucked last year, but maybe he gets that second chance with a team maybe like Dallas or just anybody that really needs the running back. Maybe if he gets a chance and shows out, he could be something again, but he's still young. He's only 24.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go.
Also,
sorry.
I would say, I think I heard the other day that J.K. Dobbins is seeming to be fully healthy again, and until he gets injured, I feel like he'll, he'll create some sort of impact for whatever team signs him. So.
Yeah, when I heard that story a couple of days ago, where it's like, oh, J.K. Dobbins in the best shape of his life, it's just such a classic agent puff piece. It's like, oh, we got to get this guy signed somewhere before the draft because after the draft he's toast. It's like that's the first thing I thought of, and then when I saw he did a visit with the Chargers, I was like, okay, it makes sense that let's have the agent puff him up to the most gullible guy, Jim Harbaugh. He just seems like the perfect guy for Jim Harbaugh to kind of lean to. So.
And Greg Roman.
Yeah, Roman knows him, so it makes sense. And then of course, if they put that out in the media, then oh shit, maybe his asking price goes up all of a sudden or something. I don't know, but I mean, I can't see him making any more than $3 or $4 million on the open market at this point. I think it's over. It's really going to be. I think he's going to be a draft day kind of guy. We'll have to see how the draft goes, and then he'll get signed after. But let's go. Apparently, we're going to the tight ends next, according to my thing. So let's not do that. There we go. There's the receivers, and we get to talk about Calvin Ridley on a 4-year, $92 million deal with only $50 million of that guaranteed. So this is another classic fake contract. It's a 2-year, $48 million deal at its core. So they can get out of it after 2 years, and it's $24 million a year, essentially, which aligns with his AAV at $23 million per season. So it's not as bad as it seems on the surface, but it's still kind of an interesting signing because he's 29 years old. He didn't look great last year. I mean, he was okay. And the Titans, this whole offseason, they said we want to get faster. I don't think Calvin Ridley is faster than some of the other guys on this list. I'm just not really sure what route they're going. But maybe it's just like we want to give Will Levis every possible chance to be good. So we're going to take Ridley, pair him with Hopkins, and then maybe take a rookie and just say, here you go, figure it out. That's kind of like at least the only reason that I could find to pay this guy this much money at this point.
They kind of gave up on Traylon Burks. I don't know.
It seems like that's over at this point. Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong.
I was shocked, that they gave that much money to Ridley and just invested in the receiver core the way they did. And it's obviously easy to see why the Jaguars weren't able to match that. So they kind of had their, second option in Gabe Davis. But yeah, that was very shocking. A player that had, some controversy and, he played great with the Jags this past year, but that contract, really, and obviously again, there's a little, it's not necessarily the real numbers. But yeah, I was shocked. I guess they just, teams with money to blow. Why not?
Yeah, they did have the most available cap space. They don't have to pay a quarterback, obviously. And this contract kind of aligns with the timeline for Will Levis, because if he does, show out and ends up being the franchise quarterback, he was a second-round pick, so his contract will be up at the end of the dead money years here for Ridley. So they could use that money to just cut Ridley, pay Levis if it comes to that. But that being said, I just don't love it, man. I just don't. It just like I feel like if you're Alex, you already had Treylon Burks. Now you have basically a competition there at the wide receiver 2, and it seems like Ridley's the shoe-in to win because of the money.
Yeah, the money is comparable, given like inflation and like the salary cap going up. Like it's similar to what Mike Williams and Godwin got a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So
pretty big.
When you put it in that context, like I think I would take him third out of those 3 guys, maybe second, but I don't know.
I just feel like there are better values, and I just don't love the idea of giving that much money to a receiver in, frankly, the deepest receiver class that we've seen, where you could, I feel like in the second round, easily get a guy that could be an impact player like a Xavier Legette, or a Ladd McConkey, maybe somebody that's got some more juice, which is kind of what they were looking for, apparently, according to GM Rand Carthon. I was watching a press conference where his goal for the offseason was to get faster, and I don't know how fast Ridley is as a 29-year-old at this point. I feel like it's not exactly aligned with what he was talking about when there were a lot faster guys out there. What's that?
McConkey's not going to be there in the second round. He's going in the first.
Oh, well, shit. Hey, that's for the draft episode, I guess. We'll have to talk about that. But, I mean, I think there's a good shot he could go in the first. But, yeah, I think this is a weird signing. Let's go to the next one, which was a shocking number, I would say, to a lot of people on the initial signing on Twitter. It was a 3-year, $39 million deal for Darnell Mooney. The real numbers are it's a true 2-year, $27 million deal, which seems a lot more palatable. And only 26 of that 39 is actually guaranteed. So this kind of reminds me, and I don't want to say it's the same because it's definitely not the same, but this gives me Russell Gage vibes from a couple of years ago. I was like, okay,
he's better than Gage.
But that's why. Now, Sean, listen, I did preface it saying it's not the same, but it feels like that. I don't know why it feels, because maybe it's a wide receiver 3 getting, paid to be a wide receiver 2, 3 in another location. But it was different too, because Gage was also a good special teams player. But I like the signing. The fit seems great. I just don't love the numbers. I feel like maybe he should have been a little bit cheaper, perhaps. But this is a weird year to sign a guy like Mooney to that money when you do have the receiving options in the draft. So I just felt it was kind of weird. I don't know who has Mooney currently in our league. I don't even know. Is it Yuskavili? Oh, it is Dustin. Yeah. But yeah, I think we discussed trade for him quite a while back. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like
I drafted him in the. I think the free agent draft is like my last pick one year, and then
maybe that's why. But yeah, I feel like from a system fit standpoint with Kirk Cousins, I think they also signed another lower level wide receiver that's not probably going to be an impact player. But if they do draft another guy, I've heard that's kind of a dark horse spot for one of the receivers to go at number 8 to the Falcons, to maybe if one of the neighbors, Odunze, happens to fall to 8, they might take one there. And then move Darnell Mooney into the slot. I mean, I still think he's going to get his targets and touches, but that would be a hell of an offense if they went that route. But so do you guys think that Mooney is going to be a pretty fantasy relevant player this year? Or is this kind of just like a role player? Sean says role player, apparently.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing too. Yeah, I think that they're gonna, have at least 3 or 4 other weapons that they're going to try to get the ball to before him, and to pay a guy like that much money. And it's crazy how I almost read your mind, Eric, because like when you were introducing him out, the first name that came to my mind was Russell Gage. Like it's kind of how I'm feeling about that. Just like overpaying.
Doesn't even play like Russell Gage.
It's not so much that he plays like him, Sean. It's more like it's the overpaying a role player.
Yeah,
that's
like
what it comes down to. It's like,
let's talk about Jerry Jeudy.
oh, we got plenty of discussion coming. Please hold, Sean. We have lots coming about Jerry Jeudy.
No, to like answer your question about relevancy for fantasy, if it was best ball, maybe, because I think he's gonna have like 2 or 3 games next year where he just pops off for like a huge long touchdown with Cousins, and then I think he's gonna be relatively quiet outside of that.
So, like, I don't want to sound like we're disparaging Darnell Mooney either, though. He actually is a good player. Like, he is a good real life player, runs great routes. He's fast. He's explosive. Like, from a football signing, this is a great signing for Atlanta. It's just not great from a fantasy perspective. I mean, there's too many things going on there to make it relevant.
I don't judge quarterbacks and receivers based off of their career in Chicago. I don't make it a point to.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely deserves a fair chance to reestablish himself with the Falcons. And from a fantasy perspective, yeah, I agree. I think he's just going to be like kind of a boomer bust guy. So
since we mentioned Jerry, what's that?
Because that'll be his role.
Yeah, just run long, and we'll get you the ball every once in a while. And he's another guy too, from a special teams perspective. He might end up being the guy that they use from a kick return standpoint. So it kind of makes sense.
Very similar to Gabe Davis.
Very similar to Gabe Davis, he says, just a little bit smaller. So before we get to Gabe Davis, let's pivot to Jerry Jeudy, because we did mention him. He's not on this list, I don't think, because this happened after. It's correct. And then signed the deal. The deal ended up being 3-year, $52 million. So the actual deal, though, is a potential out after 2027. So it's a 3-year, $42 million deal. And if they cut him after that, it would be $7 million on the dead cap. So it's 342 basically, if you want to look at it that way. I still don't like it.
Where the fuck do the Browns get all this money? I don't understand.
Exactly.
I don't know where they get it, and then I don't know why they spend it on the people they do. I don't understand what they're doing. And it's funny because I want to believe that Stefanski and Andrew Berry are like good at their jobs, but then I see shit like this and I'm like, I don't know. Like, you guys had like another great receiving class that you guys don't need to spend this kind of money on a receiver. It just feels like another bad Browns move. I mean, I could be wrong, but there's still time, I guess. Jerry Jeudy's only 25 years old. I think turning 25 soon. There's a chance it could work out, but he's always banged up. He's not really that great when he plays. Seems like a kind of a weird signing again.
Yeah. How? What was the pick that they traded for him? Was it like a 3rd or 4th?
I don't even think it was.
Was it like a 4th and a 6th or something?
I'm gonna Google it. Hold on.
I mean, that's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get traded, Sean Payton might just cut him. Anyway,
it was in exchange for Jeudy, the Browns will send a 2024 5th-round pick, and a 2024 6th. So a 4th and a 6th.
Yeah, they didn't really invest a lot in him draft capital wise, but then like do that contract. Like, why not just
you told me he's worth a 4th and a 6th, and then you pay him like he was worth a 2nd. I don't understand any like the logic does not align. I don't know how who's Jerry Jeudy's agent? That's a better question.
It could have been a situation where it definitely happens too. It happened to the Bucs when they traded for Kellen Winslow. We're like, yeah, it's great, we got him in, and then he holds out once he gets to the building. He's like, oh, I'm not playing without a contract. So then it's like, oh crap, we have to give him his contract. And
Yeah, maybe he played his
sometimes
cards
happens.
close to the vest and kind of didn't tell anybody that. And then he shows up and he's like, well, you're the Browns. You paid Deshaun Watson $500 million. Give me my money too. Like, I could see that happening for sure. But I do think from a Judy standpoint, this kind of gives him a little bit of life still, like, in terms of fantasy value. You know, Dynasty is still young. I mean, I don't love the quarterback situation, obviously, but, you know, Cooper has been productive. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like it could be any of these like Joe Flacco off the street. I don't even know anymore. So it could be
Tyler
anybody.
Huntley, yeah.
Tyler Huntley, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. It could be anybody. I don't know. Jameis, for God's sake.
Exactly.
I don't know anything. I would love it for Jameis. I hope Jameis plays. I love him. I thought it was a weird thing that he signed there anyway. I didn't like the landing spot for him. I was
No,
hoping
not
that
at
he
all.
was going to,
I
like, to
don't get
me,
what they're
he
doing.
would have been a great, like, Las Vegas Raider. Like, put him with, you know, in that Gardner Minshew spot, and I would have been like, yes, I'm all in on Jameis again. But I guess they paid him a decent amount of money too, so that helps. But yeah, from Judy's perspective, he's going to get the ball. I mean, he's
Yeah.
going to play. So
If you're paying him that much, then you know he's gonna see something.
he has to be on the field. There's no way around it. So let's go to the next guy, Gabe Davis. Apparently a Darnell Mooney clone.
For his role.
I know we were trying to just giving you shit. It's a 3-year, $39 million deal. Basically, this is almost the exact same deal that Mooney got from a money standpoint. 2-year, 26 is the real deal there. You know, I think for Jacksonville, it's like not a terrible signing. I don't love it either, though. It just feels like another like kind of a weird spot.
Meh.
It's like, oh, what's that? You had DJ Chark. Let's give you another DJ Chark,
Yeah.
and let's overpay him. It's great. So I don't really know why they did that. I still think they're primed for another receiver in the draft. They pick 18, which is like kind of that Brian Thomas, Adonai Mitchell range. It seems like right now. So I could see them doing that. However, if they don't add, you know, a premier receiving talent in this draft, you know, maybe Gabe Davis is the true one. And he gets, you know, more targets than expected. But they still have Christian Kirk there. They have secondary options. Honestly, Parker Washington looked pretty good when he played last year. So, I mean, Jacksonville's passing game isn't as bad as it might seem on paper, and it has the potential to get better. But, you know, I think from a quarterback perspective, if you can't make it work with Josh Allen, I don't know if he's going to make it work here. It seemed like he was the perfect fit for the Josh Allen chuck it deep random plays, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
Trevor will do the same thing. They both got big fucking energy.
That's true. Trevor will do it. So I mean, it's not the worst idea, but from a dead cap perspective, they're putting all this money towards the end of the contract too, which is not a good thing. And it's a Trent Baalke. I forgot he's the GM, so it makes perfect sense because he sucks.
Yeah.
So this is a very Trent Baalke signing. Let's go to the next guy on the list. Kind of a surprising amount of money for Curtis Samuel at this point in his career. Got 3 years, $24 million. 15 of that is guaranteed. So it's truly a 2-year, $15 million deal. But I actually think this is one of the sneakiest signings of the entire offseason. I feel like it was kind of weird because I feel like Curtis Samuel plays that Khalil Shakir kind of role that they already have. But this also could be another kick return thing where they try to just add some more speed to the offense. And I think I heard on another podcast I was listening to with people I trust that, you know, Curtis Samuel is kind of one of those guys that is respected around the league because of what he brings to the offense, and that other defenses are aware of where he's at on the field all the time. So it seems like a better real life signing than it is a fantasy signing. Do you guys see it the same way?
He's going to play with his old OC too.
That's very true. That's very true. I don't even know who has Curtis Samuel in our league right now. I feel like it's. Oh, there you go. So Scavelli. So how do you feel?
I really do like it for him. You know, having the opportunity to be kind of that second receiver in the Bills offense. I mean, obviously they're going to throw their tight ends as well a lot and get them involved. But I think last year he had so much success as a red zone target. I think he was like maybe second in the team in red zone targets, and he sneakily had a good year. And I definitely feel as though, you know, with a better situation, you know, he has the talent to produce. The only negative is that now it's just I have Samuel and Diggs, so it's just like, you know, having the two receivers on the same team. But there is a chance maybe that Diggs will get traded down the road, and you know, Samuel having a 3-year deal there, so hopefully it all works out for the sake of my team. But I think him going from the Commanders to the Bills and him being paid that much money can only help.
It's a definite
fantasy
upgrade.
cause. Yeah. So
There's a pretty good chance that Diggs is toast.
yeah.
I that would be really interesting if they
Yes.
kind of went the route of just, hey, let's trade Diggs, and we're going to draft a guy at 28 or wherever they pick, like a Brian Thomas or one of those guys, and then we're going to
Ladd.
bring in. We're going to have Ladd. I mean, Ladd could be that guy, and then they have Ladd, Shakir, Samuel. That could work, I guess. It would be a kind of a weird fit with all three of those guys and Josh Allen. I feel like they just need guys that get open for Allen. Route running kind of guys, and Ladd really fits that. So it would be interesting. Let's go to the next guy on the list. This is a pretty big signing for real life specifically. Mike Williams going to the New York Jets on a 1-year, $10 million deal, 8.3 that is guaranteed. So it must be a little bit of incentive in there as well. So, I mean, from a value standpoint, I feel like it's a pretty good signing for the Jets to at least give a real second option other than like Alan Lazard or whatever else they threw out there last year, like Xavier Gibson, all these garbage players they were throwing out. And, from a Rodgers perspective, like they're all in this year. They're just trying to save their jobs at this point when you're talking about Saleh and Douglas. So I do think this is a good signing. It's just, Mike Williams is always hurt, so I don't know if he's going to stay healthy. That's my biggest question.
It's going to be a sick 3 weeks.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And then I also noticed they signed Tyron Smith and a couple of older tackles, and I think Morgan Moses was the other one.
Yeah.
And they're both very good players, but all the people that they've signed are guys that are historically hurt all the time. So I'm not sure if this is going to work out again.
Tyron Smith hasn't played more than 13 games since 2015, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's stupid. That's stupid. Like, it actually is an unbelievable number. I just feel like this is like like you said, like a 3 weeks of Mike Williams, and then we'll see whoever they're, whatever guy they draft or something this year. I don't know. They need another guy though.
It screams good chemistry with Rodgers though, because he throws such a good back shoulder ball, and Mike Williams
is good.
He's so good at those.
Mike Williams is a good player. Like there's a reason that the Chargers paid him like $1 billion on his last deal. Like he actually is a good receiver, and he's still, I don't want to call it the prime of his career, but he's at least, serviceable at 29 years old. Like this is kind of his last hurrah, I guess, if you will.
I love it. I love it for Williams. Just the fact that it's a 1-year contract, and with obviously the potential to be a big time target for Aaron Rodgers, and so. Not obviously knowing that Rodgers is, not going to play forever. He could next year go and, take all the production that he had, hopefully this year, and get himself like a nice contract and, be one of the top guys. So I think it's a great way for him to prove himself. Hopefully, stays healthy. And really, when I lost him in week 3, my wide receiver depth was just so shaky and questionable. So he's a guy that I'm going to be relying on for sure as my wide receiver 2 or 3. So hoping for the best.
Yeah, it seems like for your team specifically, he's going to be a big hinge point for your season. Because if he blows up like Rodgers can do that with certain players, he could be a serious asset to the team that you maybe didn't expect originally. So, all right, so let's go to the next one. Devin Duvernay is kind of a low-level signing. 1 year, 6.3. The real deal is 2 years, 8.5, but the 1 year, 6.3. And I just feel like this is a quality depth special teams kind of signing. Plays a similar role as Christian Kirk, which is kind of what they already have. So I don't think this is going to be too substantial from a fantasy standpoint. The next guy on the list, though, is potentially very relevant. Marquise Brown going to the Kansas City Chiefs, which feels like kind of the spot that everybody wanted him to go. Still just under 27 years old, 1 year, $7 million fully guaranteed deal almost. It seems like he's going to have every opportunity to be one of their top guys. It seems like him and Rice and Kelsey are going to be that big trio unless they pick another receiver in the draft. From a Marquise Brown standpoint, are you guys feeling this, or are you a little hesitant maybe just based on the fact that, Brown, I guess, didn't really have a great year with obviously the situation he had. Do you think he could still pull it off like another, wide receiver 2 type season maybe?
I definitely think he can be relevant for sure. I think it's a better real life signing maybe than fantasy. But he fits such a good role for them where their top two guys are so good against zone and they were so bad against man last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he is specifically great against man defense. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
very true.
he just fits a great role for them. So if they find man defense, I think those weeks he's going to be great.
I really feel like he is going to play the Marquez Valdes-Scantling role and just be a smaller, better version of him, basically, because they both love dropping passes. They both love going long, and that's kind of what they do. There isn't a whole lot else. So, but I think that works in the Chiefs, situation. So I would much rather have Marquise Brown than Valdes-Scantling, which is crazy because Valdes-Scantling had a disgusting contract that we've discussed multiple times on this podcast. And then Marquise Brown comes in at like a discount from Valdes-Scantling, and he's twice as good of a player as he is. So the Chiefs front office is doing everything right, it seems like, in terms of getting some more help for Patrick Mahomes. And of course, the draft is coming, and they have picks kind of in the slot where they could absolutely take another receiver. So I still think they should take a tackle, though, because I don't think Donovan Smith or Jawan Taylor is it, if you will.
Yeah,
so I think they
still unsigned.
Kingsley Suamaitea.
That would be an interesting spot for him. And I feel like they're kind of in the spot too, where like all the offensive linemen will kind of be gone maybe after they pick in the second round. I feel like all the tackles are really going to be in the first round this year. So maybe they'll get one, maybe they won't. But let's go to the next guy on the list. I'm not even going to talk about Cedric Wilson. Is there anybody else you guys are seeing? I mean, KJ Osborne has some sneaky value, I guess. I mean, I know James had Osborne for a little while.
I mean,
I
I'll shout out Noah Brown just because he's tied to CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he played good when all the other guys were on the IR and the hospital beds. So, I mean, he was good for, those couple of weeks. Everybody's like, holy shit, pick up Noah Brown. And then as soon as Dell and Collins came back, it was no issue again. But
he's probably the only other guy here that I would roster.
Yeah, it seems like a very underwhelming wide receiver free agency class. So, and then obviously with the draft being so stacked at that position, I think that's really how teams are gonna, look to upgrade.
The Giants really sign Isaiah McKenzie? That's hilarious.
That's what it says.
Why do they love this same receiver?
They just that might just be a special team signing. His guaranteed at signing was $75,000, the lowest number I've ever seen for anything. I don't understand. But yeah, I feel like the only other guy that really could be fantasy relevant would be KJ Osborne, just because he probably will be in a role where he's on the field at a 1-year, $4 million deal. And then if it's Brissett, I don't hate it. He can at least maybe get on the flex, type thing for James. So, and he's a good player. I actually think he's a good player. What's that?
So you talk about a guy that loves to drop passes.
He does drop passes.
He has terrible hands.
But he does get open. Does get open. That's the thing.
He's always open.
All right, so here's the list of remaining free agent receivers, and I think this list is going to kind of stay like this until the draft because there are so many great players in the draft, and I don't think anybody really wants to invest in these guys until they know, where the landing spots are. The big guy, obviously, on this list would be Hunter Renfrow, I feel like, because he did play really good football for quite a while, for the Raiders, but obviously faltered a little bit this year and fell off the map. But I still think there's a chance he could, be a thing. A lot of these other guys I'm not really hyped about, I'll be honest with you.
Kendrick Bourne is on the Patriots.
Oh, he must have got signed then. Yeah, I'm not like DJ. I'm not jumping for joy for DJ Chark at this point in his career. It's like a lot of these guys are borderline rosterable or unrosterable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly hoping that if Odell finds a home in Miami,
that would be interesting.
Daniel could find a way to get him involved and just keep him going. I think, for my sake, I think I have 3 or 4 guys in the top 10 on this list with Renfrow, Robinson, Beckham, and Gage. I'm hoping that at least 1 or 2 of them are usable. So
is that Xavier Legette down there? Oh no, that's Laviska Shenault. Sorry, same guy.
Wow, oversized Laviska. Is that what we're getting from Sean Hall? This is another Sean hot take, guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna start writing these down somewhere. I have to make a separate tab on the Discord for Sean Hot Takes.
Pepper him in there, just a little
That's
pepper
good.
day.
Interesting. It's just an interesting quote. All right, so let's go to the one I passed by a little bit earlier. Let's talk about Colby Parkinson. That's what we all are here for.
Hell yeah,
25-year-old tight end that has virtually done nothing in terms of receiving production and or fantasy value. Gets a 3-year, $22 million deal. The true deal is 2 years, 15, so it's really not as bad. But why in the world is Colby Parkinson getting $15 million at all? I mean, Mike Gesicki got a 1-year, 2.5, and Colby Parkinson's making $10 million more. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch a lot of Seahawks games last year, but that was very surprising.
It doesn't. I mean, Disley getting 14 mil. I mean, I like the big lumberjack Will Disley, but I just don't see it. I'm trying to figure it out.
You
And then,
disrespect Will Disley. This is
and
a
honestly,
Will Disley podcast.
I mean, trust me, I love Will Disley. I think he's great. But all these Seattle tight ends, none of them were good at all for Seattle. So why are we paying all these guys? They must know something that we don't, or they're just awful. I don't get it. But
I mean, it definitely doesn't look like that great of a tight end class to begin with. So,
and it's not a good tight end draft class other than Bowers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not. There's not a lot going on. So I feel like maybe that's what inflated this is the fact that they couldn't really get a whole lot of good help in the draft. So they're just like, screw it. We'll just throw some extra money that we have at these guys to just ensure our depth. Like I honestly, for like the Rams and Parkinson, like I think Higbee is still there. So like he's gonna be the number 2 guy. And they already had Davis Allen, who they drafted last year, who I actually thought played pretty decently when Higbee was hurt. So it's like, okay, so now you're just gonna, one of these guys is not gonna play, and for $21 million, I don't understand. Is there any signing on here that you would consider to be like sneaky or maybe a fantasy relevant guy? I mean, Irv Smith to the Chiefs, like it seems like every year we talk about Irv Smith as like a guy that like might do something. Obviously with the Chiefs, he's not going to play, but like maybe there's some value as like a red zone guy or something. I don't know. Like I'm just grasping at straws here.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot.
Maybe Jonnu Smith, if he's like the only, option at tight end for the Dolphins. It seems like maybe he has some potential there.
I mean, I'm actually a big Charlie Warner fan, not fantasy at all, but like, I just think he's a good signing for Atlanta to get a real, like actual blocking tight end. I mean, Gerald Everett to Chicago was kind of another weird one. I don't know why they're throwing $6 million at Gerald Everett at this point. I just don't get these contracts. They're so bad. Like, why is Adam Troutman getting $5 million? He doesn't done anything.
Yeah.
None of these guys have done
anything.
They can
get away with it as long as they're, going to be on a rookie contract at quarterback. So they're just trying to get all the weapons in and just give them every opportunity to succeed, I guess.
I mean, I feel like the best deal on here is Tanner Hudson. $1 million for Tanner. He actually played good when he played last year. Like when he was on the field, he actually looked decent as a receiving tight end. Buccaneers preseason legend Tanner Hudson, by the way. I don't know. I just don't see a whole lot here, guys.
No.
Yeah, this is kind of weak. So I think we can wrap it up here. It's a good hour and a half of just pure free agency discussions. I guess we could talk about it on a future podcast, but I do feel like Scavelli, your team is one of the ones that had the most questions answered, and frankly, the most questions answered positively for your starting roster at the very least. I do think you're on the rise based on our earlier offseason discussions where we had a lot of question marks. So, what do you think your outlook looks like from here? As we progress through the draft, are you kind of thinking that this is going to be wait it out and let's go for another year, or are we going to try to move some pieces around to maybe retool, rebuild? What do you think your trajectory looks like right now based on all the stuff that we have seen?
Yeah, so outside of the quarterback position, I was very fortunate with just the movement of my players and getting them into better opportunities. And it's just crazy, like, every off season, sometimes we get a little bored with our team and some of our players, and we want to make a change, make trades and all that kind of stuff. And I've been that way many times, but I feel like because that happened organically through free agency, and I have,
just so many changes because of that. I feel like, wow, that's, maybe that will be enough to keep me in play for, in that maybe 4, 5, 6 range, back into the playoffs. I think my window certainly is closing with the age of some of my running backs. So I'm definitely in a win now mode. I do have just a little bit of ammo, maybe pick wise, to trade, make some moves here and there, possibly. But yeah, the window is getting very tight, and I couldn't have been more lucky with some of the movement that happened on my team. And just, again, how often though does a free agent go somewhere and it doesn't work out? So there's a lot of risk involved always. But as long as I could hit on, at least 60-70% of the movement that happened, and they could create a positive change for my team, it's really interesting, because I think that we'll just have to kind of wait and see how things play out. There's like a very tall, I feel like, ceiling and a floor, and it could go, many which ways. So I feel like, though, because of the movement and the changes, I'm in a much better position than I was, certainly aside from quarterback. So I'm a lot more optimistic now, and okay, like knowing that with the running backs and the moves, especially Henry and Barkley, and the opportunities that they have, I want to maximize their window as well. So I am in a win now mode, but also because of the age, I still, part of me has my eye towards the future as well. So I think this is a situation where I can only wait and see how things progress during the season. And, if it doesn't go well, then I will start moving pieces and building for the future. But if it looks like I have a chance to compete again, I think I'll do everything I can to make that happen.
There you go. You heard it here first from the GM of the Toronto Battle Axes, Andrew Scavelli. Always in the mix, always in the competition, despite whatever dynasty ranker, whatever stupid website we come up with. He's always finding a way to make it happen. So we appreciate your time and coming on here. We might bring you back on too when we have Charlie Campbell come.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be a fun one to have you come back and we can discuss the draft. I'm hoping to get something arranged with him in the next couple of weeks before he gets too busy, because we're going to be hoping to hear his all of his latest news, like Jahmyr Gibbs going at 8 before anybody else.
He's full. He's absolutely full of news. I met with him last weekend, and yeah, a lot of very juicy nuggets of info as always, and very excited for him to join the podcast. And of course, I think, again, as last time, it's just great to dedicate all the time to listening to an expert and someone that has all the information. I'll certainly be along for the ride, but yeah, very privileged to have him join.
Yeah, Charlie's the man, and truly one of the most underrated insiders, if you will, in the NFL. Has lots of great knowledge on the draft, and frankly, just a lot of connections. So we'll see if we can get any nuggets out of him live on the podcast when we have him on. But really looking forward to hearing what he has to say about this receiver class. I feel like there's just so much going on, and he has all of that knowledge and insight into what the teams are thinking too. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you both again for joining. We got about an hour and a half in, so we'll do another one of these in either next week or the week after. Start really getting into the draft now that free agency is closed. We'll start doing some mock drafts. Obviously, Charlie, maybe some rankings, some things like that. We'll get everybody involved here on the draft. So, all right, so we'll end it there. Thanks again.
Thank you.